Hi, I'm Joshua Curving, and welcome to another Death Battle prediction video. But first, we have a little bit to go over. First off, we'll have the season finale for last season, which was Darkseid versus Thanos. It was basically as I predicted. Just there was nothing that Thanos could really do there, as long as they were using the true form of Darkseid, which there's literally no reason why they wouldn't. It was a bit interesting that they equated the Mind Stone for the Infinity Gauntlet with the anti-life equation. I don't quite agree with that, but ultimately it didn't end up mattering anyway. In terms of the animation itself, I did like it. It just felt really, really slow. It was climactic. I just really think that they could have chosen significantly better music for it. There are fights where rap would fit for a fight. Like, for example, what was it? Sorry, TJ Combo versus Balrog. That it fits because it fits for both characters. This shouldn't have been rap for these two characters. Instead of going for something like rap, you should have gone for some like epic orchestral thing. Like, it just made it feel really, I guess, kind of silly. And I just think that they could have potentially gone that way instead. It is ultimately their choice, though, so I can't hold too many points off for that. Other than that, it animated pretty well. The kill shot was... I didn't like it for the specific reason that I really don't like how Death Battle uses Deadpool. I really don't like Meme Pool, which is kind of like the public, common portrayal of Deadpool. There's a lot more to the character than what people portray him as, and especially with Deadpool having essentially the final kill shot in the fight, and just the delivery of his lines. I just really don't like having Deadpool in these fights, especially at the very, very end of such an epic fight. So, moving on from that one, we go from one Marvel vs. DC fight straight over to another Marvel vs. DC fight. Aquaman vs. Namor, which, just going in, I kind of knew right off the bat it was essentially a situation of everything one can do, the other can do better. I was very, very surprised how many people were saying that Namor actually had a chance there. I ultimately did not get a video out for it, though, largely due to some time constraints, and essentially both of them are really old characters with a lot of stuff to look into. Namor is, I'm pretty sure, one of the, I think first, 2 or 3 Marvel characters. So there was a lot there to go into, and I ultimately wasn't going to burn myself out on another Marvel vs. DC fight. I'm pretty tired of those. But I think we are mostly through all of the biggest Marvel vs. DC fights. I can't think of too many other ones that they would probably do. The animation for that one I did enjoy. The rock golems were butt ugly, but it was still pretty cool. The final blow, not the final blow, but the final sequence was really cool, where they go down into the really dark depths of the ocean, and the blows that were happening were lighting up the anglerfish. That was pretty neat. I do like that idea. I also find it funny, the idea that the last 3 out of I think 5 death battles have been on a beach. Not only that, but the same beach at the very least for Jiraiya versus Roshi and Aquaman versus Namor. You can actually see Roshi's house. So it makes me wonder if Sonic versus Mario was on the same beach. It was good, though. The jokes were actually really good in the run-up, and the analysis was good. It struck me as very, very strange that they said that the fight was as close as it was, when they made it blatantly clear that Aquaman had strength feats that were millions of times stronger than Namor's. How can it possibly be close if the other person is that much stronger? And with strength, because physics exists, comes durability. So because of the fact that he can exert that much force, and his torso isn't exploding from it, he's that durable as well. So it's to the point where Namor literally could not harm Aquaman. So I just find it weird that they specifically said, oh, it could have gone either way, who knows, but more often than not Aquaman, when it's, no, every single time they fought, Aquaman would take that, no issues. But then we have the next fight, and the reason people would actually click onto this video, the Mega Man Battle Royale. A lot of people have been talking about this one. It's kind of interesting to see. Everyone is kind of tackling this more from a portrayal perspective, I guess, than an actual versus perspective. So the Mega Man that we have are Classic, X, Walnut, Star Force, and .exe. The two that people are saying are the most odds-on to win are X and Star Force. This is kind of hilariously wrong, though. It's kind of a weird fight because of the fact that people say it can depend on who fights who first, when it actually doesn't in any way, shape, or form. The main thing with this one is that these characters are actually very, very evenly divided amongst the different power tiers. Walnut himself is actually the... let's go in order of these fights here, actually. So, Walnut is the weakest. Legends, in general, was significantly smaller scale. And even Walnut got, for the most part, overshadowed by Trombone and basically almost all of the appearances outside of the main games. So Walnut, I think, is maybe, country level or something like that. Not particularly high, especially compared to the other ones. So then the step up from that would be Mega Man Classic, who I believe has some planet level feats, FTL travel, things like that. And then you have X, which people are going to be surprised that .exe hasn't come up yet, which we'll get to that. But the thing with Mega Man X is that his existence alone makes Mega Man Classic sadly pointless in this fight. Because the whole thing is that if they kind of screw something up, one of the weaker characters could potentially win. But Mega Man Classic is specifically stated in the lore to be inferior to X in every way. So if Classic was going to win, there would be no reason to, because X would win. Because those two actually are intrinsically tied to each other, whereas a lot of the other ones are not. So step up from that, you basically have Mega Man X with, there is a feat from Lumine that is at the very least star level. I do remember they did actually point out that feat in Sigma versus Ultron, where they basically mentioned that it was somewhat questionable due to the fact that it could have been an illusion. I don't think so. It's literally like a star in the background, and then after one attack, the star is literally gone. So I would peg him at star level, at least. So then you have the last two. We have .exe and Star Force. The next strongest is Star Force. From what I've seen, a lot of his feats end up coming out to be around Galaxy level. And so then you might be thinking to yourself, how can .exe be stronger than that? Well, .exe is fun because it has a lot of interesting shenanigans involving universal manipulation and things like that. There are quite a few times where the digital and real worlds are starting to be mixed, overwritten, destroyed, recreated. There's actually a solid number of universal feats for Mega Man.exe, as well as there being several FTL feats that essentially make it that it just divides itself up very evenly to the point where if you were to take if it was a 1 versus 1 of Walnut versus Classic, Classic stomps. Classic versus X, X stomps. Star Force versus X, Star Force stomps. And EXE versus Star Force, EXE stomps. So, I don't know how they're going to go about making this even seem even, making it seem like some of them have certain advantages. I know I'm not really going into the weapons and equipment as much. With a Mega Man fight, normally you would definitely want to go into a lot of their equipment and skills and capabilities. Sorry. But in this case, it's not truly necessary because of the fact that just no matter what the weapon itself is, there isn't very much that it would be able to do to someone who's that much more powerful. And for the most part, Mega Man is actually somewhat more tame when it comes to kind of stat-defying hacks. Things like being able to turn someone into a chicken. Something like that would be able to overcome a huge stat difference. But in this case, none of them really do have that. I am glad to see that they are going to actually be portraying Mega Man to be actually stronger than he was in Astro Boy versus Mega Man, because I do not like that episode. It really downplays Mega Man to him being like wall level. Was fairly silly. But it'll be interesting to see how this goes. So ultimately my prediction is on Mega Man.exe because of all of those universal shenanigans happening. I could see, though, that if they do something to basically say that those feats aren't quite equivalent to actually universe-level feats, I could see them giving it to Star Force. That said, I would personally be, again, pushing for .exe, but with how the research has been doing so far with prior seasons, with just this prior season, they basically had almost a perfect record in terms of results for that one. And any of the ones that I slightly disagreed with were at least close ones that could have been called potentially either way. So I could definitely see this one going to either Star Force or .exe, but I think with the research right now, it's going to exe. So in this case, Land should have it, and we should be all set to see the next one. They've said that this season is going to be a couple curveball matchups as well. This is definitely one of them, but I look forward to seeing what else they have. Well, you guys have yourself a great one, and I'll see you guys after the next one.